Foreign Affairs. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our position is clear. The hostages must be released. Humanitarian aid, more humanitarian aid must get into Gaza, and we need to make sure that there is peace and stability in the region. And that is why I was in the region recently, last week. That's why the Government of Canada, the country, Canada, we will continue to be there to work towards all solutions, which will include a two-state solution and recognition of a Palestinian state, but also with normalization of diplomatic relations with the region.
The honourable member from Regina Capel.
After 8 years, this Prime Minister is not worth the cost. And thanks to his policies, millions of Canadians are visiting a food bank for the first time in their lives. And as if prices weren't high enough already, this Prime Minister is planning a 23% hike on the carbon tax in a cruel April Fool's Day joke. But the tax revolt is happening. 70% of Canadians and 70% of premiers are opposed and fighting back. Like in Saskatchewan, where the budget watchdog has determined that Saskatchewan families will pay an extra $2,620 in the carbon tax. So simple question, where are Saskatchewan families supposed to come up with $2,600 to pay his tax?
Yeah. The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I have a lot of respect for the former Conservative leader, and he is a proud MP from the province of Saskatchewan, a province that is proud of its Ukrainian-Canadian population. Now, last week, the current Conservative leader said in a radio interview, he implied strongly he would cut all economic aid for Ukraine. This is a chance for the MP from Saskatchewan to say, does he support that shameful position? Yes or no?
Yes or no? Yes.
The honourable member from Regina Capel.
They desperately don't want to answer for the carbon tax pain they're causing Canadians. And no one is fooled by the ridiculous rebate ruse this government is selling. That's because Canadians know that the carbon tax rebate was specifically designed to exclude all the secondary costs that go up when the producer, the shipper, and the retailer all have to pay their higher share of carbon taxes. And the average income earners, the middle income earners across Canada, are worse off even after the rebate. $900 worse off in Alberta, $500 worse off in Saskatchewan, $600 worse off in Ontario. Why doesn't the Prime Minister show some compassion and spike the hike?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I'm glad to hear the member opposite talk about the rebate, because that is what it is. This is returning money to Canadians. 8 out of 10 families are better off. It is revenue neutral for the government. But I noticed that this Saskatchewan MP, a member of Parliament many of us on this side of the House really respect, someone who is proud to represent the people of Saskatchewan, I'd like to hear him say, does he support his leader's shameful position on Ukraine? Yes or no? The people of Saskatchewan deserve to know.
The honourable member from Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this NDP Liberal Prime Minister, food bank usage in Toronto is up 500%. Now they want to hike the carbon tax on gas, on groceries, on home heating by 23%, on their way to quadrupling the tax over the next 6 years. What a cruel April Fool's joke. According to the Parliamentary Budget Officer, the average Ontario family will pay $1,674 of carbon tax. Where does this Prime Minister think they're going to get that kind of money?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians can see through these Conservatives, and they know that the only thing these Conservatives know how to do is cut, 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 and the people who suffer the most are the most vulnerable. They want to cut the Canada Child Benefit. They do not support dental care, which is helping the most vulnerable among us. They do not support early learning and childcare, which is helping make life more affordable for Canadian families. They are going to push, they want to push Canadians into poverty. We won't let them.
The honourable member from Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, they've already done that, and we're going to cut the taxes. If you give back $1,000 to an Ontario family, but you take $1,674, Liberal math says that's more, but real math says that's less. The Prime Minister doesn't get it. He's not worth the cost, especially for the 300,000 Torontonians who ate in a food bank just last February. They are about to hike taxes by 23% in less than 2 weeks. Why is she the only person in Canada who thinks that raising taxes will lower the cost of food?
The Honourable Minister of Finance and Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, if the member opposite really believes her rhetoric about supporting Canadian families, why does she think that cutting support for them will help? Why doesn't she support early learning and childcare? Why doesn't she support the Canada Child Benefit, which has helped to lift more than 2.3 million Canadians, particularly children, out of poverty? Why doesn't she support dental care, which is helping the poorest Canadians be able to take care of their health and their teeth? That is conservative hypocrisy, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Peterborough-Kawartha.
After 8 years of this Liberal NDP coalition, food has never been more expensive. In fact, food is so unaffordable that 50 active serving military families from CFB Gagetown are using the Oromocto Food Bank. This is outrageous, it is shocking, and it is unacceptable. Right. So, for the 100th time, on behalf of all the Canadians and 70% of the premiers in this country, will they spike the hike, axe the tax, and make food more affordable?
Yeah! The Honourable Minister for National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, that's an extraordinary comment, and I'd like to commend the member for being able to say it with a straight face. Because the fact is, Mr. Speaker, we gave members of the Canadian Armed Forces a very significant raise just last year. And when it came before this House to vote for the money for that raise, every single Conservative on that side of the House voted against it. Shame. Mr. Speaker, perhaps they should scrap the crap.
Shame.
I'm going to ask members to be very judicious in their use of words and to making sure, and I'll ask the Honourable Minister to be very judicious in his choice of words. The Honourable Member from Peterborough-Kawartha.
Mr. Speaker, that's exactly the lack of classy response I would expect from a Liberal member. And the reality is he doesn't know what's going on because clearly he doesn't listen. These are 50 real families accessing a food bank under that Prime Minister's watch. $700 more in groceries a year for Canadian families. Low-income families are most impacted. 1 million more users of food banks this year. Students, seniors, low-income families. Right. Those are the facts. That's what we will keep fighting for. Spike the hike, axe the tax.
Yeah.
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, many people in this House profess to support members of the Canadian Armed Forces, and yet when it came time to put your money where your mouth is, they weren't there. When it came time to vote for a pay raise for members of the Canadian Armed Forces, every single one of them voted against it. Mr. Speaker, that's the height of hypocrisy.
Shame.
Before I move to the Honourable Member for Salaberry-Surwa, I would just like to remind all members that when you are answering questions or asking questions, you need to go through the chair. The Honourable Member for Salaberry-Surwa. The word out of Ottawa these days is no. No to full powers in immigration for Quebec, but also no to the right to withdraw with full compensation from the federal dental care program. No to the right to withdraw with full compensation from the federal drugs program. No early requests for medical assistance in dying. And even in healthcare, where Quebec has full powers, the answer is no. Even in programs created by Quebec, it's no. Why not respect Quebec's expertise instead of complicating or even preventing access to care? The Honourable Minister of Public Services and Procurement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm so happy to hear our colleague talk about dental care, the new Canadian dental care program, Mr. Speaker, under which 1.4 million seniors have already asked for access. And of that 1.4 million seniors, over a third are seniors from Quebec. And there are more seniors from Quebec who have made a request with success than seniors from Ontario. And all that is because, Mr. Speaker, we really need this plan to help seniors get essential dental care and also to help make sure that our professionals can take care of people across the country, including in Quebec. The Honourable Member for Moncton. When it comes to health care, even when Ottawa and Quebec agree, the federal government threatens to say no. Quebec has resigned itself to the insufficient increase in health transfers, and yet Ottawa is threatening to cut if Quebec doesn't meet its conditions in the next 13 days. Even when Ottawa and Quebec have the same goals and when they agree, Ottawa is threatening to hold back the money if we don't sign to approve each one of its conditions. What is the federal government waiting for to give Quebecers their money back? Do we have to beg on bended knee? The Honourable Minister of Transport. Well, you know, Mr. Speaker, who's saying no? It's the Bloc Québécois. They're saying no to collaboration, no to conversations, no to partnerships, no to everything, Mr. Speaker. Meanwhile, the government is working with the government of Quebec to have a fair agreement, and we're very confident that we'll get there by the end of the month, Mr. Speaker. Why? Why? Because it's good for all Quebecers, for everyone except for the Bloc Québécois.
L'honorable député de Montcalm.
The Honourable Member for Montcalm. This government has just decided it's going to say no to everything. No to everything all the time. No to Bill 21. No to full power in immigration. No to Quebec's ability to manage health care itself, even though it's exclusive provincial jurisdiction. Imagine, today, they're saying no to Quebec's autonomy when it comes to managing its own fields of jurisdiction, despite the fact that this principle is recognized across Canada. Do the Liberals not realize to what extent they're showing a lack of respect to Quebec? The Honourable Minister of Transport. Does the Bloc Québécois not realize the extent to which it's not showing respect to Quebecers, Mr. Speaker? And, you know, our leader... Their leader attacked the Premier of Quebec in a speech. Meanwhile, our leader is meeting with the Premier. The Bloc are the champions of no. No to agreements, no to discussion, no to collaboration. That's what the Bloc Québécois is. We are going to have an agreement by the end of the month, an agreement that's good for all Quebecers, Mr. Speaker, but not for the Bloc Québécois, apparently.
The Honourable Member from Coastal Bay Central, Notre Dame.
Mr. Speaker, Saturday's poll by the Voice of the Common Man revealed that 90% of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians are against the April 1st increase in carbon tax by 23%. Even the Liberal Premier, a fury, he pleaded with the Prime Minister to pause the April 1st tax hike.
That's right.
Newfoundlanders and Labradorians are sick and tired of these cruel April Fool's jokes. So after 8 years, will this NDP Liberal Prime Minister heed the plead and spike the hike, or will he once again prove that he's simply not worth the cost?
The Honourable Minister for Labour.
Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we will continue. We are absolutely driven to impart upon the people of Canada cold, hard cash in their pockets. That is what this rebate will do. This is not something that's made up. This is not something that's trivial. This is something that Canadians feel in their bank accounts and in their wallets and in their pockets 4 times a year. This is real cash, Mr. Speaker. We will not deny to the people of Canada. Thank you.
The Honourable Member from Foothills.
After 8 years, this Liberal Prime Minister is just not worth the cost for Canadian farmers. On April 1st, the Prime Minister is going to increase the carbon tax 23%, and the impact on Canadian food production is staggering. A grain farmer in Simcoe County paid $36,000 in the carbon tax in 1 month. The carbon tax cost a poultry farmer in Alberta $180,000 last year. The food professor, Dr. Sylvain Charlebois, advised the Liberals to spike the hike or see wholesale food costs go up 34%. Wow. Food production is no joke. Will the Prime Minister spike the hike so farmers can afford to grow food?
The Honourable Honourable Minister for Agriculture and Agri-Food.
Mr. Speaker, my honourable colleague is well aware that farmers are on the front line of climate change. He's also fully aware that we have a climate change environmental plan. He's also aware that his constituents receive $1,800 a year in their bank account. Is that what you want to cut? $1,800 out of your constituents' bank account? I disagree.